Hey there, Rednecks, Preppies, Redneck Preppies. It's me, the Redneck Preppy. How you doing today? Great. Good. Hearing protection. It may be the least sexiest aspects of the shooting sports. I am one of those Poindexters, however, who's always looking for something a little bit better. Now, prior to this review, I used two products for hearing protection. The first are these Howard Light Impact Sport earmuffs. Fantastic ear pro. Been using this pair for nearly a decade. NRR of 22, not great, not terrible. And they are powered, so you get gunshot noise reduction, but you can still hear stuff on the range. I also use these Surefire EP10s, which I reviewed a few years back. I tend to use them when rifles are unfriendly to cheek welds. NRR of 28, which is great. Only knocks are that you have to replace these tips periodically, and they don't boost certain frequencies like voices. Now, although I like the Howard Lights for being a reasonable compromise between cost and performance, an NRR of 22 isn't great. So I started looking for an ear muff replacement, and I ended up with these Walker's Xcel 100s. Now, as is usual on this channel, everything reviewed, including those earmuffs, is paid for by me. Okay, the package they came in has long been sent to a recycling plant somewhere, but if you need to know what it looks like, here is a lovely picture. Inside the package, you will, unsurprisingly, get the muffs themselves, a pack of Energizer AAA batteries, which are in the muffs at the moment, and what passes for a manual. All right, they're earmuffs, so how they work, I'm going to assume, is not going to be rocket science to you. You have what Walker's proclaims to be an ergonomic headband design, so presumably more comfortable across the top of your dome. You have omnidirectional mics on both sides of the headphones, which presumably means that you'll be able at least to roughly know where a sound is coming from. The company says that these mics also have a wind mitigation feature in them. There is an auto shut-off feature which defaults to 2 hours, but you can choose between 2, 4, and 6 hours. Now, if I recall, Walker states you should get 50 hours of active hearing protection and digital sound magic with the power on from the two AAA batteries that uses. Now, on this side, and this panel should be on the left side of your head when you're wearing your headphones, you got 4 buttons. Now this button powers the muffs on and off. These two, volume up and down, and this one cycles between the 4 sound modes that are built into the headphones. Now I should discuss these modes now. Basically, the muffs are capable of 4 different signal processing modes. The first is universal. Think of that as your standard powered earmuff mode. Cuts out gunshot sounds but allows you to hear everything else. The second mode is speech clarity mode, and it purports to boost the frequencies associated with voices so you can hear them more clearly. Now, third, you have high frequency, and that's meant for shooting steel as it amplifies the frequency that ringing steel typically generates. Now, finally, you have a power boost mode, which makes everything louder. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really know why this mode exists, but it is there if you want it. Now, when you turn the power on, you're going to hear a woman's voice informing you of that fact, and as you cycle through the modes, her voice will tell you which mode you've selected.
Universal. Clear voice. High frequency boost. Power boost.
Now you may have noticed that there are no controls or buttons on the muffs themselves. Instead, they are exclusively on the headband. That was a deliberate decision by walkers to reduce any potential noise that could travel through the muffs and into your ears. And that allowed them to make these muffs slimmer than you'd think for the level of protection that you get with these. Which, of course, brings us to the NRR rating. Their maximum rating is an NRR of 26, which for a muff this thin, it's, pretty darn good. That said, all that is just marketing talk. The true test is out at the range to see how well these actually work. I'm going to say at the outset that this isn't going to be one of those supported by, hard science segments. And I mean real science, not that Anthony Fauci stuff. I'm not an audiologist, and remarkably, none of them wanted to loan me their expensive testing equipment so I could get numbers. So this is going to be somewhat subjective. Now, I've been using the Howard Light Impact Sports, NRR of 22 if you remember, for many years at this point. So I think I have a good frame of reference if earmuffs don't at least equal their performance. Now, based on my very subjective opinion, the Walker's Xcel 100s do seem to offer increased hearing protection. At no point did I experience any discomfort from the hundreds of gunshots that I've experienced while wearing them. During one range trip, I fired 200 rounds from inside of a building, which had the effect of greatly magnifying those gunshot noises. And I didn't experience an issue once. I was initially dubious about the sound modes, but I have to admit that I came away reasonably impressed. Universal mode just works just as you think it would. Reduces gunshot sounds while everything else is audible. Speech clarity mode did a good enough job of boosting speech, and I had no issues hearing voices a distance away and understand what was being communicated. Rather important on a public gun range. High frequency was the one that I was mostly interested in. Now, if you shoot steel at distance, especially with a smaller cartridge like 223, you know that the ringing sound can be a bit muted. In this mode, I don't think I ever missed an impact. I found that this mode did a better job also of differentiating ringing steel over standard universal mode. Now, as for power boost, I've got to admit I didn't use it much. It does what it does, but I prefer dedicated modes like speech, clarity, or high frequency. I honestly don't see the point of power boost, but it may come in useful for you. Now, as for comfort, I can't say that I had any issues. Some people have complained the Xcels tend to dig in to the arms of glasses into the side of your head after a while. I can't claim to have experienced that. The ergonomic headband, which I think it just means is a little more padded, was comfortable enough. I didn't find the 100s heavy. I think they weigh about a pound. So that wasn't an issue either for me. Overall, the earmuffs, for me, struck a decent balance between maximizing protection and comfort. Your specific head may say otherwise. As always, since this is a review, I am contractually obligated to offer pros and cons for a product. And as is the tradition with this channel, I shall begin with cons. They're not terribly expensive. Their MSRP is US $100, which is about the same as the Howard Light Impact Sport. That said, $100 is $100. You can get EarPro a lot cheaper. You can buy a bucket of those 3M yellow earplugs for almost nothing and get an NRR rating just as good. Even the Surefire EP10s I mentioned earlier are cheaper and provide a higher NRR. Comfort could also be an issue for you. As I said earlier, some people find the Xcel muffs to be uncomfortable after a while. EarPro comfort is largely a question of skull geometry, and if you have one that doesn't care for the Xcel, it is what it is. These muffs are larger than my Impact Sport muffs, and I find that they can be moved by a recoil transmitted through a cheek weld. Keep that in mind if you find that muffs tend to do that with you. Earplugs in this situation may be your solution. I can see people having trouble using the buttons while wearing gloves. I think the biggest problem will be with the power and mode selection buttons because they are smaller and slightly inset. The volume buttons are larger and set out, but they're also close together. So again, perhaps not so easy with gloves. This particular model, the 100s, doesn't accept either wired or Bluetooth input. So if you want to listen to music or use your phone while you're hearing the Xcels, you're going to be out of luck. Now, there are Xcel models that do have Bluetooth connectivity if that's what you want. Personally, I chose these precisely because I couldn't do anything other than concentrate on shooting, but your wishes may vary. Now, time for the pros for this Ear Pro. The size and weight that these muffs come in at while providing an NRR of 26 is pretty impressive, at least to me. There are smaller, lighter, and slimmer earmuffs from a variety of companies, including Walkers themselves, but you're not going to get as high of an NRR as you would with the Xcels. Related, I found these to be comfortable enough. I've never particularly enjoyed wearing earmuffs at the range, but Walker's Xcels didn't bother me. I did have to get used to them as they do fit tighter to my head than my Howard Lights, but pretty quickly I didn't notice it. I was initially tempted to think that the sound modes were a bit of a novelty, but they actually grew on me. The high frequency mode for shooting steel is great, and the speech clarity option is very useful in a busy and loud shooting range when someone's calling for a ceasefire, for example. Now, granted, I never had an issue hearing voices with my Impact Sports either, but having an enhanced speech mode isn't a minus regardless of how you look at it. The sound quality is fine enough for the purposes. These are digital, yes, and you may experience occasionally slightly tinny sound in some situations, but these weren't meant to be audiophile muffs. On the whole, however, I found the sound quality to be good. The software that reduces the sound impact of gunshots works very well. I can't say that I haven't had an issue with it. In fact, one could argue that the software is very aggressive to the point that it even engages with sounds that aren't gunshots. I noticed a few times that the muffs cut off more innocuous sounds like a dropped magazine or a cycled bolt action. I am never going to complain about aggressive sound protection and mitigation. That's why I bought these. Recommendation time. Now, I might be a bit biased because I did a great job of trashing my hearing through many years of very loud death metal concerts in small venues. But these days, I don't think you can go overboard when it comes to protecting your hearing. The reality is that long-term exposure to gunshots and loud noises in general will wreck your hearing. A lot of the hearing protection out there with a lower NRR will do enough to stop short and medium-term damage, but maybe not enough over the very long term thanks to a small accumulation of damage each time. So it behooves you to go with the maximum amount of protection that you can afford. There is better hearing protection available than the Walker Xcel 100s. You can buy big earmuffs that kick up the NRR into the low 30s, and many of them are less expensive than the Xcels. There are trade-offs, however, which include increased size, weight, and the lack of those electronic features that many shooters want these days. That said, you can double up the Xcels with earplugs if you want to go to a maximum of protection. The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health in the United States recommended some years back that shooters do precisely that, double up earmuffs and earplugs. That said, on the continuum of adequate but unspectacular protection and sealing yourself into a soundproof chamber, I feel that the Xcels strike a reasonable balance between protection, comfort, and features. So if you're looking to upgrade your earmuff protection but want the convenience of features that powered models offer, I think you could do much worse than the Xcel 100s. And as much as I loved my Howard Light Impact Sports, The first time I used the Xcel 100s, I knew that the Impact Sports would be relegated to backup duty. Not only for the added features, but for the extra few decibels that I'm not going to be subjected to. So, my recommendation is this. Get yourself a pair of 3M Peltor X5A earmuffs, which offer an NRR of 31. Combine them with some earplugs, and you get an NRR of 35 or 36. If, however, you demand a powered digital earmuff, you can do a lot worse than these Walker's Xcel 100s. And I would certainly recommend these over similarly priced earmuffs. These are going to be my ear pro going forward. At any rate, I hope you found today's video at least be vaguely entertaining and mildly informative. As always, I hope your range trips are safe and fun. Take care, and bye-bye.